Okay, let's start the meeting. No?
Sorry, Ryan, I want that door open, please, so it's accessible to the public. Thank you.
Okay, so let's start the meeting open. Perhaps we record that as 11:04. And let me announce who we've got here in the room. So we have Tamara Clarkson to my right, Chief Executive Officer. We have Wayne Neate, Director of Infrastructure. We have Luke Lawrence, Director of Community Planning. Excuse me. We have Maria O'Connell, Coordinator Communications and Media. We have Richard Rose, Aboriginal Engagement Manager. Good to see you, Richard. I have Kylie Tame, Manager Development Services. Welcome, Kylie, as well. And we have Jill Brazil online. Hi, Jill, and I think you can probably hear me. Just give me a thumbs up or something if you can. Jill Brazil is Director of Corporate Services and she's online from Derby. Let me move into item 2. This meeting will be video recorded for the Shire's YouTube channel, with the exception of confidential items and periods of adjournment as determined by the presiding member. By being present at this meeting, members of the public, and I note there are no members of the public, consent to the possibility that their voice and or image may be live streamed to the public. Recordings will also be made available on the Shire's YouTube channel and website following the meeting. The official record of the meeting will be the written minutes kept in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 and any relevant regulations. Item 3, Acknowledgement of Country. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Shire of Derby West Kimberley acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout the Shire and the continued connection to the land, waters and community. The Shire of Derby West Kimberley would like to pay our respects to the peoples, cultures and elders past, present, and the continuation of cultural, spiritual and educational practices of Aboriginal people. As we're meeting on country in Looma community, I also particularly like to acknowledge the Nigana, Mangala and Walmajiri people who predominantly make up this community, and thank you all for the welcome that they have provided to us. Point 4, item 4 is attendance via telephone or instantaneous communications. We note that we have Jill Brazil on the phone, on the video phone. I think that's the only one we need to acknowledge. We move on to item 5, announcements by the presiding person without discussion. So I do have a statement that I would like to make at this point, and for the minutes. I'm pleased to be able to speak today from the Looma Aboriginal community, where we are holding our regular August Council Commissioners meeting. I think it's important that local government is visible in Aboriginal communities, particularly given the population distribution and service requirements we have in the Shire of Derby West Kimberley. It's been some years since the Shire held a meeting in a remote community, so I'm pleased to recommence that practice. I am now about 4 months into a 6 months appointment. I spoke to the community at our last monthly meeting about the initial focus on Shire cash flow arrangements, particularly with the state government, and then more broadly on finance, setting a budget for the coming year, followed by establishing the basis for several challenging but impactful decisions. Particularly, I outlined decisions about 1, changing the responsibility arrangements for the Derby Port and reducing the liabilities for the Shire, whilst maintaining and enhancing community use, including recreational boating access and existing subleases. And 2, about developing new arrangements for the delivery of youth services in both Derby and Fitzroy Crossing, in partnership with Aboriginal community-controlled organisations in each town. These decisions were both made at the July meeting, and I can report that there is good progress. Discussions are progressing well with the state government about the port, and I hope during my time in the Commissioner role to be able to advance those discussions to the point of having a draft agreement upon which we can base some community consultation prior to a decision being made, now most likely by a newly elected council. The administration are working on a process to engage with Aboriginal community-controlled organisations to develop a partnership for youth services delivery. Again, this will come back to council for a final decision. We have been able to commence the process to develop a council plan that will incorporate a strategic community planning approach. Consultation has commenced and a community survey is an early stage component of the council plan. Please provide your input where you can. The plan will only be as good as your input. The preparation of an economic development strategy is also kicked off and the project control group has been established. We think we have that process well structured with input representing both our towns and across our community and our demographics. The primary input to the economic development strategy will come when the widespread consultation across the Shire commences. Already I'm having people approach me eager to be involved. Both the council plan and an economic development strategy are crucial foundations to base Shire of Derby West Kimberley's priorities. Worth noting that both documents are mandatory for local government. I expect both will be well advanced by the time an incoming council is able to provide their input and finalise the plans. Internally, I have recently focused on corporate governance. At today's meeting, you will see consideration of the appointment of a contractor to provide internal audit functions to the Shire's administration. This will be the first internal auditor that the Shire has appointed and will add significant capacity to assist the administration to strategically deal with organisational risk issues. That capability will build on the enhanced Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee process we have in place. That committee will meet later today with its new independent members. Thanks to those people for stepping into those important roles. I'm also planning on having a long-term financial plan in place or well advanced by the time my term concludes in October. This will be invaluable for the next council, particularly as they start to consider and prepare their next budget. Again, worth noting that a long-term financial plan is a mandatory requirement for local government. I hope these strengthened governance, financial management and compliance initiatives are exactly the foundations a newly elected council will need. Speaking of a newly elected council, it's timely to remind all residents of the Shire about some key dates in the election cycle. Nominations for council member positions and for the Shire President open on August the 28th and close on September the 4th. There are prospective candidates. Many have spoken to me already and I expect more. However, the nomination process is via the WA Electoral Commission Returning Officer, Mr Gary Waldron. Nominations are made in a process that Mr Waldron oversees. Please consult the Shire's website with details about nominations and voting. Not only do I encourage people to stand for election, but from right across the Shire, I encourage all eligible voters to have your say in Shire elections in October. Thank you for the people who have travelled to Looma to be part of this meeting, and our heartfelt thanks to the Looma community for generously hosting this meeting today. Jeff Gooding, Commissioner. So if that can go into our minutes, please, Ryan, that would be good. Move on to item 6, disclosure of interests. 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. There are no new financial...
Sorry, there is, through the chair. Through the chair, Commissioner, should the late item be accepted by council, 15.1, I will have a financial interest as the probation review item relates to my employment. Okay,
so can we take that declaration now?
Yes.
And record that? Quite right to pull me up. I was thinking that I was the only one. So 6.1, there is a declaration of financial interest that's just been made. 6.2, declaration of proximity interests. I reiterate the two declarations that I've previously made. 6.3, declaration of impartiality interests. I have nil. Applications for leave of absence, I have nil. Responses to previous public questions taken on notice. I think we have nil in that, as well. Move on to item 9, which is public time and public question time. I have 2 questions that have been sent through to us from Mr McCumsty, and I'll go through both of those, both the questions, and then I'll call for the answer. So Mr McCumsty, so I've taken the opportunity to comment and raise 2 questions in relation to agenda item 13.2 on the August OCM Ordinary Council meeting agenda through the public question time. I note that the proposal for future Verge management does not raise the issue of mosquito control in relation to keeping breeding areas in long grass on verges. Question: has or will the issue be taken into account when adopting any new Verge maintenance program? I thank Mr McCumsty for his question, and I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure whether he could provide a response, please.
Yep. So, whilst long grass won't promote breeding within the grass, it will promote harbourage. So it will be encouraged as part of our mosquito awareness program, and I suppose Fight the Bite, that people maintain their verges in a manner that reduces the length of the grass and therefore the harbourage of mosquitoes.
Thank you. Second question from Mr McCumsty. Have or will a process of consultation be undertaken as part of the proposed policy, with those landowners expected to maintain their individual verges, and agencies such as the Department of Communities and the Department of Housing, who represent the majority of housing ownership in Derby and Fitzroy Crossing? Director next.
So if the policy is approved, we will be writing to the Department of Housing and Department of Communities to advise them of the change in the position of council, that they will then therefore be required to maintain the verges on their properties. Within the policy itself, it does provide for elderly, people with disabilities to notify the council and request that we maintain the verge on their behalf on a case-by-case basis. So there's that opportunity for community, and I would say that we will be advertising the decision that's been made and the change of position of council, that we probably won't be maintaining everyone's verges into the future, and that will be a requirement of every individual property owner. It does also take into account sight lines on corners, so that if sight lines become an issue, we maintain those to prevent road accidents, etc. But it will bring the council into line with the rest of the 136 local governments that already do that work.
Thank you. Well, thanks for those answers, and thanks for the questions. I'll move on. I'll ask if there's any other public questions. There's nobody present, so I'll make the assumption that there are none. 9.2, public statements. Nobody present, so we'll say that is nil as well. Item 10, petitions, deputations, presentations and submissions. I have nil. Move on to item 11, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. So I have in front of me a recommendation here in relation to the minutes. I have been through the minutes, and I'm comfortable that they're a true and accurate record. So the recommendation is that the minutes of the Ordinary Council (Commissioner) meeting held at the Council Chambers, Clarendon Street, Derby, on 31 July 2025 be confirmed. I'll move that motion and declare it carried 1-0.
I'd like to say something please to this item.
About that item?
To this item that we're about to do.
Righto. Item 12, corporate services, and particularly 12.1, the appointment of an internal auditor. This is the first appointment of an internal auditor that we have had. That role is to provide a systematic approach to the reviewing of internal controls, and it's all designed about minimising risk, fraud and error. It's an important tool. My experience with internal auditors elsewhere has been that it's a very important tool for management, and it's a significant enhancement of management capability to be able to have access to an internal auditor. So I'm pleased that the Shire Administration has been out looking for appropriately qualified people to provide a quotation. And I note that we had two propositions that we were considering. As I said, it's an important governance enhancement, and it complements our external auditor. Before I move to the recommendation, I might just ask the CEO whether you've got any additional comments.
Through the Chair, thank you. When this item was prepared, the internal auditor function under the Act was assessed to be separate to the financial auditor. However, on further reflection and to ensure clarity around the process, under Section 7.3, appointment of auditors, an absolute majority decision is required. So I would like to include in that recommendation that Council Commissioner, by absolute majority, continue on with the recommendation.
Thank you. All right, so I'll make a minor amendment to the recommendation as I read it.
Thank you.
That the Council Commissioner, by absolute majority, appoints Paxson Group for the provision of internal auditing services at an estimated cost of $20,000 per annum over financial years 25-26, 26-27 and 27-28. I'll move that motion and declare it carried 1-0. Thank you. Item 12.2, accounts for payment. This is a standard item and it's required by our legislation for council to be considering accounts that are paid under delegated authority on a monthly basis. So this is the July 25 monthly payments, list of accounts rather. Anything that we need to add here? Right, I see Jill saying no as well. So I'll move to the recommendation that the Council Commissioner accepts the list of accounts for July 25 paid under delegated authority in accordance with Regulation 13(1) of the Local Government Financial Management Regulations 1996, attached to this report totalling $4,252,394.69. I move the motion and declare it carried 1-0. I have been through those accounts, by the way. Moving on to item 13.1. This is a policy rescindment of the Derby Townsite Streetscape policy. There are two items here, 13.1 and 13.2, that effectively link to each other. The second one talks about a proposition around a new policy. In order to develop a new policy or to move a new policy, we need to rescind an existing policy. So item 13.1 is about the rescinding of an existing policy. I'm going to move through that quickly in order to get to the second matter. So the recommendation is that Council Commissioner endorses and approves the rescinding of policy W2, Derby Town Streetscape. Director, need anything to add to that?
No, I think so. To add, Commissioner.
Right. So I'll move that. I'll move that motion and declare it carried 1-0. So moving on to item 13.2 now, which is an adoption of a new policy around Verge management. As I said, and for the record, it does need to be read in conjunction with 13.1. and this is about the adoption and implementation of a new policy. We're in a situation, the Shire is in a situation where service delivery and completion is consistently impacting and schedules, are not able to be achieved. Across the state, this Shire is one of a very few local governments that maintain verges. I've taken that into account. I've also taken into account that in the Shire's current community strategic plan, verge maintenance is not a priority. But I do note that we are in preparation of a new and upgraded plan. So it may well be that we need to consider going forward what our policy is. So this current policy that I'm considering today is effectively interim, and we do need to consider our capacity to maintain verges, the community need, and reallocating our hours across parks, roads, curbs, footpaths and drainage to better be able to deliver service for our community. I think it's important that we acknowledge that as we go forward and have a better planning basis, we will be in a situation to be able to consider our streetscape policy in more detail and in a better informed way. So I'll move to the recommendation, which is that Council Brackets Commissioner adopts the Shire of Derby West Kimberley policy Verge management, Derby Township and surrounds. 2, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to make any relevant amendments to policy Verge management, Derby Townsite and surrounds, to make any formatting or other minor wording changes. And 3, instruct the CEO upon completion of the new council plan to investigate the options of reinstating a new streetscape policy based upon the information informing the new council plan. So I'll move that motion and declare it carried 1-0. Fitzroy Crossing Cemetery Maintenance is item 13.3, and proposition here that the Council Brackets Commissioner determine a way forward, acknowledging that this is largely normally an operational matter, but has some significance that administration has brought it forward to make a determination. It has been difficult to maintain a consistent workforce in Fitzroy Crossing. I think that is acknowledged. The turnover has caused significant backlog of works. We think that there are potentially options in our community to provide an alternative maintenance provider in Fitzroy Crossing, whilst at the same time underlining that the Shire staff will still undertake, irrespective of the outcome, the Shire staff will still undertake the installation of plots for burials. This is an important item of standards, and the Shire would continue to be able to continue to do that and continue to perform that function. I think the proposition to go out to expression of interest is a sound one, particularly at a time when the council's finances are so heavily constrained, and we need to be looking for value for money in this area as well. So, and I think that the EI, an expression of interest and potentially a new service provider, may enhance our own service delivery. So I'll move to the recommendation, which is that the Council Brackets Commissioner 1 authorises the Chief Executive Officer to undertake an expression of interest process for the provision of maintenance services of the Fitzroy Crossing Cemetery. 2, notes that if no suitable service provider is identified through the expression of interest process, the Shire will continue to deliver maintenance services of the Fitzroy Crossing Cemetery. And importantly, number 3, notes that the operational component of sinking graves and management of grave allocation remains with the Shire as per the current operations. I'll move that recommendation and declare it carried 1-0. Next item is item 13.4, a fee waiver request for airport landing fees related to the Outback Air Race. I considered in detail the recommendation and the background information that's come from the Shire administration, and there's several points to reiterate there. That the Shire is supportive of the RFDS work. However, the way that this particular event is being run, there is very little community flow-on effect from, or benefit from, having all of these aircraft land, refuel and take off. There's not a large interface with the community, so the community benefit from the air race itself is very minimal. There's also a short notice period that we got in the Shire which precluded us from looking for a community grant to cover these fees. And the recommendation of the Shire officers is that the fees not be waived. And I think that recommendation is procedurally sound, and it does take into account the Shire's financial situation and also the low amount of benefit there is from this air race. However, I probably need to put a higher order lens over this, and I need to think about a range of other issues, including potential reputational risk for the Shire. Whilst this race might not be providing much immediate community direct benefit, it is trying to raise money for the RFDS, and of course RFDS is strongly supported by probably everybody in the Kimberley. So I note the recommendation. However, I am going to go against the recommendation on this occasion. So I'll move through this process. So the recommendation is that the Council Commissioner declines to waive landing fees at Derby Airport for the Outback Air Race 2025 event, and directs the Chief Executive Officer to respond to event organisers with the decision. I'll move that motion. However, I'm not prepared to vote for it, so I declare that resolution lost 0-1. I'm not sure how to describe that, but it's lost because I'm not voting for it. And I'll move an alternative motion, and that is that the Council Commissioner waives the landing fees at the Derby Airport for the Outback Air Race 2025 and directs the Chief Executive Officer to respond to event organisers with the decision. So I'll move that alternative motion and declare that carried 1-0. I would also like to add an additional component around, sorry, I probably should have done that slightly before. I'd like to add an additional component about putting a maximum of $2,000 on that decision. So let me restate the recommendation.
Thank you.
That Council Commissioner waives landing fees to a maximum of $2,000 at the Derby Airport for the Outback Air Race 2025 event, and directs the Chief Executive Officer to respond to event organisers with the decision. I'll move that alternative motion and declare that carried 1-0.
Thank you.
Is that right?
Yes,
Yep.
please, thank you.
Procedurally right. Okay, moving on to item 14, Development Services, and particularly 14.1, Local Emergency Management Committee meeting minutes. It's an important committee that the Shire hosts and sponsors, and in fact leads. So regularly the LEMAC provides minutes of their most recent meeting to council to keep us informed of key issues. I've read those minutes. I think it's a reasonably straightforward noting issue. So the recommendation is that council Commissioner receives the minutes of the Local Emergency Management Committee meeting held on Tuesday, 29th of July 2025 as attached. I'll move that motion and declare it carried 1-0. Thanks, Luke. Moving on. Right. So we move on to item 15, which is new business of an urgent nature. And I do have one item there. There is a late item, and I will need to formally accept that I will consider a late item. So I'll move a motion that the Council Commissioner accepts a late item. Probably need to name it, don't I?
Yep.
I need to accept a late item. Okay, and we'll call it the Chief Executive Officer Probation Review. I'll move that motion and declare that carried 1-0. As this is a confidential matter as well, I'm going to move to close this meeting to all except the minute taker. So I'll move the meeting be closed to consider item 16.1 and declare that carried 1-0.
Okay.
So if we could just leave Ryan and myself. Okay. So can I reopen? I move to reopen the meeting at 11:41 or 2, whatever your watch says. And note that I now have present in the room apart from myself. I have Tamara Clarkson, Chief Executive Officer, Wayne Neat, Infrastructure Director, Luke Lawrence, Director, Community Planning, Maria O'Connell, Coordinator, Communications and Media, Richard Rose, Aboriginal Engagement Manager, and Kylie Tame, Manager, Development Services, all join me, the Commissioner. So that meeting is now open. So whilst the meeting was closed for confidentiality reasons, the following motion was passed. That Council Commissioner, by absolute majority, 1, confirms that Tamara Clarkson has successfully completed her probationary period. 2, approves Tamara Clarkson's permanent appointment to the position of Chief Executive Officer in accordance with the terms of her contract. 3, directs the Chief Executive Officer to establish the CEO Performance Review Committee following the ordinary election to be held on the 18th of October 2025. 4, directs the Chief Executive Officer to commence the process for an independent human resources consultant to review performance and set appropriate key performance indicators with the CEO Performance Review Committee. And 5, schedule the CEO Performance Committee to conduct the annual performance review in February 2026 and present the CEO Performance Review Committee to the ordinary meeting of Council. So that was moved and passed by absolute majority. So for the minutes, could we also now add that I congratulate Tamara on her appointment and in front of all of her staff say what a great job I think she's doing, and I'm sure will continue to lead the Shire in the very professional way she has been up to this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's that item. Now, that became 16.1, didn't it?
It's 15.1.
And that was 15.1.
Oh, I'm not sure why it's there, but it's 15.
Righto. Let's move to 16, matters for which the meeting may be closed, for confidentiality matters. I'll have nil. Item 17 is around the next meeting date. 17.1, the next ordinary meeting of Council Commissioner will be held 11 a.m. Thursday the 18th September 2025 at the Gary Yearley Adult Education Centre, Fitzroy Crossing. So with that, let me move to 17.2 and close the meeting at precisely 11:45. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
Meeting closed.